Hi, I'm Rob Mies. I'm the executive director and the co-founder of the Organization for Bat Conservation. The Organization for Bat Conservation is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to helping people understand how important bats are. We actually are a wildlife rescue that cares for bats and other animals. And first off, I want to say happy Halloween. It's the last day of the 2016 Bat Week, and hello to everybody watching on Facebook and explore.org. We're thrilled to be partnering with explore.org. We've got some amazing video cameras that are set up in our fruit bat enclosure and also in our vampire bat enclosure. So again, happy Halloween to everybody. My name is Rob Mies, and I am a bat expert. I've been working with bats now for almost 25 years, and I've had a chance to travel all over the world studying bats, from Alaska to Australia to the Amazon rainforest, and tomorrow is my first time to Africa. So I get a chance to go see straw-colored fruit bats, which you can see right now on our explore.org feed. Straw-colored fruit bats, beautiful yellow color around their neck, and long dog-like face. Looks a little bit like a chihuahua. Well, those bats form the biggest fruit bat colony in the world, with about 10 million bats in Zambia, Africa, at Kasanka National Park. And I'm going to be heading out there leading an expedition. We're studying those bats to make sure they're healthy and their population is doing well. They're big at seed dispersers and pollinators, and they migrate across Africa. Well, I see we've already got a bunch of questions. Is there a hierarchy in a bat colony? If so, how does it play out? Generally, there's not a hierarchy. In vampire bats, though, there is a group of females, and that's the harem. There's one male who thinks he's spreading only his genes during the mating season, and then there's a bunch of other older males and some younger males, but it's the females that hold the colony together. Generally speaking, there's not much of a hierarchy. There's 1,400 different species of bats in the world, and we don't know a lot about most of them. So as we discover more things, it'll be great to share that. We see 4 bat species in the fruit bat enclosure. In the wild, how likely would they be to be roosting in the same area? Actually, a lot of these fruit bats do forage really closely with each other, and sometimes even living in the same trees as each other as well. Could you describe the bats' enclosures? Well, yeah, these are actually large enclosures that are soft-sided so that the bats are safe and protected. These bats are actually injured and orphaned bats. A lot of these bats need to obviously stay in captivity because they can't be let go into the wild. Our organization has been around for over 20 years, caring for bats that were born in captivity, that were injured in the wild, and that are older, elderly. We've got bats in their 20s, even bats that are close to 30 years old. We do separate our males and females because we don't need breeding. We have almost 200 animals that live at our wildlife sanctuary. Most of our bats cannot fly. They come to us because they were injured. The ones that can fly, the enclosures are plenty big enough for them to be able to fly around. Do the vampire bats and fruit bats need different conditions of temperature? No, not really, because they're both tropical rainforest animals. And so vampire bats typically live in caves, which is also nice and humid, and so is the rainforest on above ground as well. Some of our animals actually do have allergies. We give them cherry flavored liquid children's Benadryl when needed. Tom actually has a little worse allergy. So do I. He came to us. He had bad grass allergies when he was living at the Oakland Zoo. Oakland Zoo is such a great zoo to go see these Malayan flying foxes. If you live in California, check out the zoo because they've got a huge outdoor enclosure. But Fred and Tom came from the Oakland Zoo. The keepers thought they'd make great educational animals, and they are. So they're doing really great here. It is illegal to rehabilitate bats in Michigan, as well as other states too. I can't remember how many, at least a half dozen other states, maybe even more. It is illegal. One of the reasons why is that the state doesn't want people taking care of animals that might have diseases. But also, there's been a problem with some of our little bats during winter when they're hibernating. You know, I actually have a bat that I could show you up close. And I want to show you what one of our bats in North America looks like here. This is one of the most common bats right here. It's called the big brown bat. And the big brown bat, this one is probably, let's see, about 3 inches from tail to nose. Loretta is this little bat's name. Loretta came to us. She's not able to fly. And let's see, you know, I brought her a little something to eat. So let's see if Loretta's hungry at all. I have some insects for Loretta to eat. Loretta, are you hungry? There we go. Oh, this is good Halloween right here. So Loretta's having a little bite to eat. And what's really cool is we could actually hear this little bat's echolocation with a little electronic device called a bat detector. I'm gonna plug this bat detector in. It's called an echometer, and it lets us hear and see the echolocation calls. So the sounds that Loretta right now is making, she's making with her voice. You can hear the echolocation through this little electronic device called an echometer, and then it's displaying on the iPad. This is one of the coolest things that people can get involved with research. We call it citizen science. It's when people can take a little bat detector like this and plug it into their iPhone or their iPad. Echolocation is the way that small bats get around at night. They give off high-frequency calls made with their vocal cords. It bounces off of everything, and they know where things are just by listening to their echolocation. Now, our bats actually eat tons of insects. You know, our bats throughout North America and actually throughout many parts of the world are the primary predators of nighttime insects. One bat by itself eats up to 5,000 insects every night. And that's annoying insects like mosquitoes and flies. But more importantly, it's moths and beetles. And moths and beetles destroy our crops, our gardens, and our forests. So it's incredibly important that we protect bats. And there's been a fungus that's been affecting them over the last 10 years. And unfortunately, it grows in mines and caves, and it wears the bats down. And so we've been seeing bats disappearing across much of the eastern part of the United States. Let me get back to some of these other questions. We have actually bonded with a lot of our bats. Somebody's asking if we've bonded. Many of these bats that have been here, our keepers will work with for many years. I've actually been here for over 20 years, and so some of these bats I've been with for 10 to 20 years, and so the animals definitely know us really well. The vampire bats, some of those vampire bats are banded, somebody asks. And that's because they had a tiny little plastic band on their wing. As long as it doesn't cause a problem, we've left it on when they've arrived from other zoos. And so as long as it doesn't cause a problem, we leave that little band on. And that helps us to be able to identify exactly who that bat is. Do the bats receive all the moisture they need from the fruit they eat? No. Most of the fruit they eat, they get their moisture, but they do drink water. as well. Even in the wild, bats would fly down and drink water in flight. Do bats mate for life? Good question. If you've missed me saying already, there's 1,400 different kinds of bats in the world, so we're gonna find out a lot of different things. Right now, we don't see monogamy, and I don't expect to see it very often. It's probably not the most important thing for the population. We see smaller fruit bats and that are interacting with each other. It looks like it's boxing. Well, some of those bats actually might know each other. They're related. It might be like brothers who are having a little bit of a disagreement, and they sometimes use their thumb, and they'll just kind of, it's almost like us using our hand and maybe tapping on somebody, or they might use their thumbs as almost like an Italian or other populations and societies. We use our hands as a description, as a descriptive way of talking, and that's kind of what those bats are doing as well. How long is gestation? Typically, gestation for most bats is about 2 to 3 months, and but some bats could be upwards of 9 months. Actually, vampire bats are upwards of 9 months. How are the how are the lights used to simulate day and night? Well, nocturnal animals can't see in red, and so when we have our red lights on during the day, and that's when people are coming here to the museum, and then also that's when the animals are most active. We have full spectrum white lighting that comes on in the at night, and so we've reversed their light cycles. Most bats actually never see the sun because they live in caves during the day, or they live in dark crevices, and then they come out at night. Somebody asks, we live in South Texas. Would vampire bats ever try to bite humans? Vampire bats don't live in Texas. They live in southern Mexico and Central and South America. As you could probably see on the video cams on explore.org, vampire bats are really small. They typically feed off of cows, though. And as long as you're in a building or in a tent or something like that, you're never going to be fed on, even if you're out in areas where vampire bats live. We have a little over 3 acres where we'd like to put up a bat house. Where should we put it from the house? You know, I have a bat house right here. What a bat house does is it gives the bats a safe, warm, dry place to raise their babies. And you can see inside here real small spaces. Our bats in the United States are all little bats. On this whole side of the world, bats are small. We actually have small bats all over the world. The giant fruit bats that you get a chance to see here, those are from the rainforests of Africa and Asia. Well, anyway, you would put this bat house up about 12 to 15 feet off the ground, facing an open, sunny place. So a pole or the peak of a garage or the side of a chimney works really well. Don't put it on a live tree. It doesn't work great. But put it up on a pole or the side of a building. So try to get at least 4 to 6 hours of direct sunlight on it. So again, up high towards an open area. And those small spaces keep bats protected from predators like raccoons or cats. You could actually fit up to 100 bats in a bat house this size. Not Fred or Tom, not our big fruit bats, but the little tiny insect-eating bats that live throughout the world. They like to be in small places like this. A mom bat usually has 1 baby once a year, and moms live together in groups. Is there any way to warn bats of, somebody asked, windmills because of electric generation? So when we talk about windmills, let's actually call it wind turbines. You know, a smaller windmill isn't usually a problem for birds and bats, but these giant wind turbines can be. So they're usually placed along migratory paths, unfortunately, where the wind is strong, and birds and bats sometimes fly into those wind turbines and they're either injured or killed. And there are some techniques now where actually keeping those blades from rotating at lower speeds when there's more bats flying. So that's helping bats. But also there's some radar that could be pushed out around to basically create a buffer so the bats don't end up coming and hitting it. So we're making a lot of progress, but worldwide this is a problem for both birds and bats. If bats can't be rehabilitated in Michigan, what happens to them if you find one? Well, in over 20 years, I have gone out hundreds of times to rescue an injured bat, and I would say 90% of the time the bat's not injured. And the reason that people think it's often injured is because bats can't take off from the ground. So when a bat gets knocked down in a storm or by a predator, it lands on the ground and it has to climb somewhere, kind of crawl off, climb up, and then take off. So generally speaking, if it's in a forested area, in a field, in your backyard, leave the bat on the ground as long as it's safe and everybody in the area is safe. Some bats actually go to the ground and go underneath leaves to stay warm and dry when they know rain's coming, when frost is coming. And so most of the time people find a bat, it's not injured. But if a bat is injured, in most states, the Department of Natural Resources prefers that nature take its course, and you put that bat, you move the bat over away from people or pets, and nature takes its course. Usually a predator probably will end up getting the animal if it's injured or orphaned or something like that and can't fly. If it's a baby bat, most of the time mom will come down and grab the baby and then bring it back up, because a mom only has one baby once a year. Somebody said they just saw our presentation on Saturday, the American Museum of Natural History. Where can they visit bats in the area? So in the area of New York City, Central Park Zoo, also the Bronx Zoo. There are some good bat displays, and the Philadelphia Zoo also is another really great bat display as well. If you have a bat house in the yard and you go out at night in the yard, will they bother you? Bats generally stay away from humans. I remember seeing bats fly down, and when I was out hiking around when I was a little kid, I'd see bats kind of coming down around me. And people used to think they might get tangled in their hair. But bats can see. They're not blind. They have great echolocation. They give off sounds so they know where things are. But we attract insects, and bats eat insects. So sometimes bats come down somewhat near you, but they're not ever going to come down and land on you. They're not trying to get you at all. And a bat house in your backyard is going to help eat a lot of the insects. The bats are going to eat tons of the bugs. A mom bat eats up to her entire body weight in insects every single night. So it's really good for us to have them around. Are the ones who resemble puppies called fruit bats? Yeah, we call them a flying fox. Maybe our Save the Bats logo as well looks a little bit like a flying fox. We actually started our Save the Bats campaign 2 years ago this week during Bat Week, and we had help from Amy Adams and Zack Snyder, and who else was that helped us out? Ben Affleck. Oh, yeah, we had Ben Affleck that even helped us out, too. Well, they were filming the Batman vs. Superman movie that was being filmed just a few miles from our museum. We're at the Cranbrook Institute of Science, just north of Detroit. And they found out how important bats were, and bats were disappearing. I was talking a few minutes ago about this fungus that's been affecting bats. Well, since bats have been dying, we've been getting a lot more information out there so that people understand we don't want to kill bats. We need to protect them and put up bat houses, plant gardens. We need to do things for them. Well, we launched this Save the Bats campaign, and we were lucky enough to have this great logo created for us. And people really love this logo. We've got hats and hoodies and stickers. So anyway, check out our website, batconservation.org, and you can learn more about our Save the Bats campaign. We also have free plans on how to build your own bat house. You kids can join our Bat Squad, the Kids Club. We have gardening tips for bats. And obviously, you can watch our vampire bats and our fruit bats any time of the day on the explorer.org cameras. All right, let's take a look here. When a bat house is utilized by bats, does the urine go down on the ground, form a puddle? Oh, could it be a problem for other animals? Bats mainly go to the bathroom in flight, so you're not going to have a problem with guano or urine building up underneath the bat house. And actually, it's great fertilizer, so your plants right below it will be doing great. Oh, bat predators. Yeah, bat predators don't catch bats very often, but outside of big caves, now I was in Texas just recently at Bracken Cave, it's the biggest colony of bats in the entire world, about 20 million Mexican free-tail bats just outside of San Antonio, Texas. Well, there were owls, there was a skunk, there were raccoons, there were fox, there were hawks, lots of predators waiting for those 20 million bats to be flying out, and they were picking them off. Again, it's natural predators eating a few of the slower ones or maybe the older ones, but yes, there are a lot of predators outside of caves with big colonies, but in general, there are too many predators who catch bats on a regular basis. Do bats hibernate during the winter? Well, in some states, like Texas, they don't hibernate. They might migrate to a slightly warmer temperature. Our bats, let's say in the north, from New York to Michigan, Minnesota, Washington, they will either hibernate, which is most bats, or they will migrate to warmer temperatures. Bats can hibernate for up to 9 months straight, so maybe up in Alaska, where it's really cold, bats will need to hibernate because the food's not available for them. Their body temperature goes way down, their heartbeat goes way down, their metabolism drops so low that they're nearly frozen. But the bats can live all winter long and then come out in the spring. Again, I was talking about this fungus that's been affecting bats in North America. It's actually probably the biggest wildlife catastrophe in our lifetime in the last 100 years. We're losing about 1 million bats a year. And that's one of the reasons why we're celebrating Bat Week over the last week. October 24th through today, Halloween, October 31st, we've been celebrating Bat Week. 1, bats eat tons of insects. 1 bat eats up to 5,000 insects a night. 2, bats are pollinators. They spread seeds, that's number 3. And there's a lot of food that we love, from bananas and avocados. We love mangoes and dates and figs. Well, those are pollinated by bats, and those are also spread by bats. So we need bats in the rainforest, and we need bats in the wetlands and in the forests, because they're doing all these ecological benefits, these services for us. And you know what? They're doing it for free. So we need to make sure that we understand the ecological benefit and the economic benefit of bats. So when you're watching the animals here that we have at the Organization for Bat Conservation, a lot of these are injured animals, or they're orphaned animals, so they're not able to fly. But you're seeing a lot of activities, a lot of behavior that they normally do. So they're grooming themselves. They lick their thumb and they clean their face. They lick their fur and they lick their skins. They're just a lot like cats. They're very clean animals. This is a funny question. Apples that we put in are cut in a zigzag pattern. We do that because it's a lot easier for the bats to land on them and then to bite off a chunk as well. So some of these, some of the fruits easier to bite off a chunk, and some is a little bit harder. And somebody also was asking about the evolution of bats. Right now, The oldest fossil ever found was in the Green River Formation in Wyoming. And this bat is a lot like if some of you are just tuning in again. Hi everybody on Facebook and explore.org. Thanks for tuning in. I'm gonna show this big brown bat again real quick because this is a good time again to talk about fossils. Okay, so our little bats on this side of the world are tiny little bats. They're called microbats. Micro means small. They have tiny eyes. They have huge ears. So look at this bat's huge ears. And there was a fossil found a little over 5 years ago in the Green River Formation in Wyoming. And that fossil is about 53 million years old. And it looks a lot like the bat does right here. I'm going to real gently stretch the bat's wing out so you can take a look at it. The bat's wing looks a lot like our hand. They have 4 fingers and a thumb. In between each finger is a very thin skin. Now this little bat, her name is Loretta, and I'm going to give her another little mealworm for her to eat. There we go. So that fossil actually has 4 fingers and 4 nails on it besides the nail on the thumb. Really different than the bat here. This bat here only has a nail on its thumb and not on its fingers. So we're getting a little closer to determining what bats were more closely related to or what their ancestor was. But right now we still don't know. Have bats been introduced into Florida to eat the mosquitoes carrying Zika virus? They have not. If we took bats from somewhere else and released them in another place, they would just fly away. So they wouldn't stay to where we probably released them. We are trying to encourage more bats and healthy bats so that bats eat all kinds of insects, flies and gnats and mosquitoes. So bats do eat some mosquitoes. They don't specialize in mosquitoes. Nothing in the world specializes in mosquitoes, unfortunately. And at the same time, the pesticides and chemicals that are being sprayed are not the answer either. So we need more of a holistic way to decrease the number of mosquitoes. Eliminating some standing water around us. We could also put in a type of fish that eats mosquito larvae in ponds, and bats and birds and other animals like spiders and dragonflies eat mosquitoes too. So we need a healthy ecosystem to help keep other levels of populations of animals like mosquitoes at a lower level so that we're protected. Would bats in Michigan use bat houses in the winter? Well, let's talk about bats all over the world. Bats, when the winter comes, they need to either get out of the area completely and go to warm weather, or they need to go underground and they go in caves and mines to hibernate for the winter. So, bats in Michigan, bats in North Dakota, bats in Idaho, have to find somewhere to go for the winter, and it's either going to be migrate or it's going to be hibernate in caves and mines. So I want to reiterate again that it is Bat Week, so we're celebrating Bat Week. We launched our 2 bat cams, our fruit bat cam with our giant Malayan flying fox, and also our straw-colored fruit bats that are in there, and Jamaican leaf nose. Those are also fruit eaters, so we have all of our fruit eaters in that one enclosure, that habitat. Nice big area for them to fly around. They crawl around. For those of the bats that can fly, that's plenty big enough for them to be able to fly. As you can probably see, we have a lot of enrichment that we put in for them as well. Our animal keepers come in, they make different things, and they put in smells, and they put in special food every day that they get a chance to check out different things. We want the bats to be physically enriched, we want them to be physically healthy, and we also want them to be intellectually challenged sometimes as well. And then we have our vampire bats. Our vampire bats, as it turns out, are the smartest bats of all the 1,400 species right now. They have the biggest brain capacity relative to size of all bats in the entire world. Are bats territorial, and do they have specific mating displays? Generally, bats aren't territorial, sometimes because they want a piece of fruit. Somebody asked earlier about a bat boxing. They might use their thumbs and they kind of tell another bat, go on, get out of here, that's my piece of fruit. Sometimes when bats are flying around out at night, if a bat found a really great crop of insects, another bat flies in, well, that bat might screech out, maybe give it a little call and say, hey, this is my area. In general, they're not territorial. As far as mating behavior goes, there's a cool bat that's in Africa called the hammer-headed bat, and its head kind of sticks out and looks like a little bit like a hammer, and that hammer-headed bat makes this honking sound. It's actually really loud, and female hammer-headed bats can hear it way over a mile away. Well, these hammer-headed bats live together, these males, hang in a tree. It's called a lek, L-E-K. And they hang in the tree and they make these honking sounds and they sing out. Honk, honk, quack, quack, honk, honk, quack, quack. And the females come over and they climb in the tree and they look at the male bats and they listen to them and then they decide who they're gonna mate with. I don't know what they're saying. I don't know what they're singing. I don't know how they make their decision, but it's one of the cool things that they do. How do you attract bats to a new bat house? Well, bats find a bat house because it simulates the loose and peeling bark of a dead tree. So you put up the right bat house. So again, check out batconservation.org. We have plans on how to build your own bat house. We also sell bat houses. So the holidays are coming up. You can buy T-shirts, Save the Bat T-shirts. You can buy. I was showing earlier. We actually sell these little bat detectors that you could plug into your iPhone or your iPad. It's called an Echo Meter, and you can buy bat houses too. But it's fun to build them. So check out our website. Download plans on how to build the right bat house. So first thing is buy or build the right bat house. The second thing is you got to put it up in the right place. Bats find a bat house by sight. So you want to make sure that it's up about 12 to 15 feet facing an open, sunny place. Open so the bats can find it. Sunny to keep the bats warm. Even in Texas, even in Florida, even in Trinidad, where I was last year, a bat house was placed on the west side of a building, got tons of afternoon sunlight, and the bats loved it. So make sure it's the right bat house and the right placement. Oh, Fred. Someone was asking about Fred. Fred is one of our Malayan flying foxes. Fred and Tom came from the Oakland Zoo, and they're both about 20 years old. Fred has some arthritis, and he went to the vet yesterday. He has some new medication we're trying out for the next couple of days. He actually is doing really well today, so he's eating lots of food. His eyes are nice and big and bright. So we're helping him deal with arthritis. As a matter of fact, I have arthritis, and I'm also really careful about about what I eat and stretching. But I take some medication sometimes too to deal with it, and so I can relate to Fred. And I have allergies, so I can relate to Tom as well. All right, I'm not going to complain. All right, let's see. Oh yes, thank you. Yeah, so someone was commenting on that. Our organization is really based about making it accessible for people to become excited about bats. Our Save the Bats campaign is all about making it simple, making it easy. We need people to understand. Most of us grew up hearing bats are going to get stuck in your hair, bats are blind, bats are going to suck your blood, or they're going to give you diseases. Well, the three things that we need to teach people is that bats eat tons of bugs, they pollinate plants, and they spread seeds. So that's really the key things that people have to understand. Now, bats don't build nests. They live in bat houses or trees or caves. They are not going to drink our blood. We talked about vampire bats already. They live in Central and South America and feed off of cows. Diseases. That's one thing you don't want to. You don't want a bat as a pet. It's against the law. They're not. They would not make a good pet as well. Bats, are like squirrels. You're not going to run out into your backyard and grab a squirrel and bring it home as a pet. It's going to bite you. It's going to break everything in your house, and it's going to go to the bathroom all over the place. So we have bats here because they're injured, or they're orphaned, or they're elderly, and we take extra special care of them. We have special keepers that know how to care for each one of these bats. Some of them, we actually have a couple bats that are blind. We have bats with cataracts. We've had bats with cancer. We've written up in scientific journals about how to care for bats as well. Oh yeah, this is a problem. Someone was asking about bats getting caught in nets over trees in like Australia and other places. This is a really tough problem because in Australia, a lot of the rainforest has been cut down, so the bats have less fruit to eat from trees, and then they end up going to farmers' trees. Well, typically they're not eating fruit that we'd be ready to pick off the tree. They're eating older fruit, but unfortunately, farmers obviously don't want the birds and the bats eating the fruit at all, so they put nets over them, and sometimes these birds and bats get tangled and die on the nets. There's certain types of nets, actually, that are more wildlife friendly, and there are a lot of groups in Australia working with farmers to try to reduce the impact, but also letting some of this older fruit go to birds and bats. Oh, this is a good question. Somebody was asking about blankets or towels that hang in the enclosures. We do that so that the bats, one, they're soft, so if a bat flies into it or lands on it, it's nice and soft on them. But in the wild, they would have places to avoid each other. And so we give them, they're almost like little rooms, right? And so the bats can go behind them. The bats can, if they're having a problem with their brother or their friend, and they can just kind of hide behind something. Let's see. Is it true that there are no fruit bats in the United States, in the continental United States? That's true. There are no fruit bats in the U.S. or Canada at all. There's a few nectar-drinking bats that are found down in southern Arizona and New Mexico, but there are no fruit bats in the United States. And as a matter of fact, on the Hawaiian Islands, there's only one mammal that should be on the Hawaiian Islands, and it is a insect-eating bat. It's called a hoary bat, H-O-A-R-Y, and it's a bat with about a 16-inch wingspan, and it's an insect eater. But isn't that cool? On all the Hawaiian Islands, only one land mammal should be there, and it's a bat. Well, how else would land mammals gotten out there? Well, they got out there because of humans. So humans are there, and cats are there, and boars, and all kinds of other mammals that should not be there, but a bat is the only one that should be there. How many bats total live here at the Organization for Bat Conservation? We have about 150, about 150 bats total, 12 different species, small insect-eating bats. We also have small fruit-eating bats. They're called leaf-nosed bats. They echolocate out of their nose instead of out of their mouth. We also have the larger bats we call a flying fox or a dog-faced bat. And so most of our bats come from zoos or museums or sometimes from rescue centers. And none of our bats could be released. So we don't do breeding here because our bats are injured or orphaned or elderly. But our bats cannot be released. We keep them here. We take care of them for the rest of their lives, make their lives interesting, fun, and especially they are amazing animal ambassadors so that you get to watch them at home on explore.org, and people can actually visit here. So if you're in the Southeast Michigan area, please come and visit the Bat Zone at Cranbrook Institute of Science. You can also check out our events page and lists all of our programming. So we travel all over. We travel around from, I was just in Colorado, New York, Texas, Baltimore. So hopefully you can come and check out the animals live at some point. So So, I don't know if we were supposed to go this long, but thank you so much for tuning in on and listening on Facebook and on explorer.org. We've had a great time today. I got to show you one of our little local bats up close and personal. I answered a bunch of your questions. You had tons of great questions. Have fun watching the cameras live on explorer.org. Happy Halloween. And this is the last day of Bat Week, so happy Bat Week. Check out our batconservation.org website and join our Save the Bats campaign. Put up a bat house, plant a garden, and most importantly, teach other people how important bats are. All right, this is Rob Mies signing off. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great Halloween.